Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to welcome you all to our charity update webinar and our mini-series that we're doing called Every Penny Counts. This is the first webinar of three, focusing on maximising your charity income. We have a packed agenda today, and a number of my colleagues will be presenting alongside me, who will introduce themselves as we go along, but I have the pleasure of presenting with Gemma Davies, Ross McWeir and Vicky Watts from a variety of areas of the firm, covering business transformation, tax and our outsourcing services as well. In terms of the agenda today, we will be looking to cover elements of maximising your fundraising, how you can make the most out of the income that you receive, and also how to seek to maximise the donations to your organisation. The second topic will be on charitable legacies, and also kind of lifetime giving and how to encourage them and encourage individuals. Third, we'll be looking at the making best use of your existing assets and how to maximise those to the best of your abilities. And then finally, we'll be talking about maximising your taxable income and refunds, before doing a Q&A section at the end. So if you do have any questions, there is a Q&A function within Zoom. If you just click on the little question mark, at the bottom there's a little chat square, and then you can pop your questions in there, and please pop them in as you go along so that we can read them, but we'll be answering them all at the end. But as you think of them, please pop them in and we can address as we go along. So I will be speaking first this morning on maximising your fundraising revenue. My name is Josie Woodward. I specialise in the charity not-for-profit sector within BDO. I do a lot of work within internal audit and risk assurance, and personally I am a trustee of a charity outside of work, so I do a number of fundraising activities, grant applications and so forth, and I also chair our trustee network within BDO. So obviously there's a lot of topics within fundraising, so we're not covering all types of fundraising today, but we'll be focusing on some of the innovation that we're seeing coming through fundraising and maybe coming up with some ideas that you might not have thought of, or thinking about kind of the fundamentals of fundraising that we can go into in a bit more detail. So obviously, as shown on screen, there is a lot of different types of fundraising. There is the types of corporate fundraising, events, major donor fundraising, public fundraising, and third parties. There's different types, so maybe there might be a few on here that you haven't considered or aren't currently maximising to the best of your ability at the moment. So in terms of corporate fundraising, it's thinking about corporate events, volunteering opportunities, how can you engage with your partners in a different manner, partners and payroll giving. Is there a way of working with some of your partners to kind of encourage and maximise payroll giving that takes place? A longer number of those work with CAF to donate that can potentially go straight to your bank account as well. Looking at maximising licensing, so what are those existing assets that Ross will touch upon that you can use potentially license and work with other partners? Major donor fundraising, so looking at your large significant impact donors and how you can work with them further. Gemma will be touching upon legacies and lifetime giving and potentially moving some of those significant donors into that area. Grant applications, legacies. Under events, we have self-planned and volunteer-driven, so making sure that you're utilising your local groups if you have them, or local branches, to really push your fundraising and presence as well. Public fundraising, door-to-door, the classic fundraising processes, going around and door knocking. There is the old school chugging, so standing on your street and shaking the bucket, even though we're not allowed to shake the bucket anymore, but standing there and kind of looking for those kind of traditional donation routes. Everyone's digital presence has really increased over the last few years with COVID, and that is kind of the area that we'll be diving into in a bit more detail today. Lotteries and raffles, and then finally use of third-party fundraisers. So starting kind of from the basics of maximizing your fundraising. So taking each of these in turn is kind of taking a step back and thinking about your strategy to fundraising. So what is your fundraising strategy and how does that link into the overall kind of process and approach you're taking as a charity? Have you clearly defined your mission and impact? So have you clearly communicated to your funders what your charity's mission, goals, and objectives are, and the impact that you're trying to create? So what impact day to day can they expect after they donate to your organization? People are more likely to donate when they understand the purpose and the significance of the cause that you're working towards and what their money is doing to help you towards that goal. So that is the joint ambition rather than an individual ambition. Developing compelling stories, so sharing those impactful stories that you see day to day to demonstrate how your charity has made a difference to people's lives. People like to feel connected to organizations that they are donated to. So how can you create and further that connection through different platforms? So thinking about personal narratives that you can create an emotional connection with potential donors, and which makes them more likely to contribute and also to give regularly as well. Building your relationship with your donors was third. Thinking about how you cultivate those existing relationships to create a sense of loyalty and long-term commitment. This works for both kind of big brands as it does for charities. Brands really seek to create that long-term commitment and presence. Why do you buy Pepsi over Coca-Cola, and thinking about those kind of general, what kind of feeling does your brand create to individuals? And is that the kind of feeling that you want it to create? Regularly communicating updates about the charity's work and expressing gratitude for people's donation. That is also a great way of doing this, and acknowledging their contributions. We'll be going on a bit later to talk about how to kind of maximize your donor impact as well. And then personalizing interactions. If someone makes a large donation, can you personalize that interaction and make it more recognizable to them and showing kind of that individual gratitude, and from that potentially creating referrals to other sources of income as well. Fourth, we have transparency and accountability. Is there a way to demonstrate your transparency by sharing financial reports with them and highlighting how their donations have been used? This is particularly important for large donors, but also thinking about how you show transparency through your annual reports and any impact reporting that you do. The more transparency that you have, the easier it is for people to understand how the money is being spent and why they should donate more in the future as well. Finally, that we have here is donor recognition, which again we'll be going into in a bit more detail, but recognizing and appreciating your donors publicly, highlighting their contribution through any newsletters that you have, social media outlets, or you can even run your own recognition events. A number of charities actually run kind of gala events or fundraising or summer fetes where they recognize donors that have made a significant contribution within the year, not necessarily just on value, but also donation of time. So any volunteers that have significantly gone above and beyond to support your charity in the long term as well. So public acknowledgement not only expresses gratitude, but also encourages others to contribute as well. So all of this kind of stems back to the importance of knowing your brand and your purpose. So have you taken a step back to think, what are our values? What is our brand? What is our charity trying to say? And that might have changed from pre-pandemic. We have kind of been in this period of catch up, as it were, with the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, the ever growing demand on charitable services. So taking a moment to pause and reflect on your brand and your culture and your values and consider, is this what we want to embody? We actually did a webinar recently, which is on our charity page as well, on your charitable culture. So there is an hour-long presentation on that if you want to delve into that element in further detail. But has that changed from the pre-pandemic? And also, is that where you want to be in 5-10 years time? Is that how you want your brand to be recognized? So Thinking about first defining your values if you haven't already, or kind of refreshing your values. Consider what your principles and beliefs are and why they're important to you. Reflecting on the qualities and characteristics that you want your charity to embody, and writing and reflecting those down in your core values that your staff reflect in their activities as well. Identifying your strengths and unique qualities is the second step. What is your USP? What is your unique selling point? Why should someone donate to you over other causes? And what impact are you having? Again, so linking back to that impact-driven way of thinking. Assessing your strengths, skills, and unique attributes. What sets you apart from the others? What do you excel at? What are you good at compared to others? And understanding your strengths will help you position your charity to purposely be more effective, and also kind of come at your approach to fundraising and operations in a different light. Third is determining your target audience. Who do you want to connect with and serve? Define your ideal audience and customer base and donor base. Consider their needs, their preferences, and how you can support them. So not necessarily also your donor, but who you are supporting day to day. Because they can also be the people that donate. If you have helped them, then moving them from that stage of helping and supporting them into a donor long term. So understanding your target audience will help you align your charitable brand and purpose with the desires and expectations of both your donors, but also the people that are benefiting from your charity as well. Fourthly, crafting your mission statement. A number of people have these online, and also they're on the Charity Commission website, but people haven't taken a step back and thought about them normally in quite a long time since they were created. So writing a clear and concise statement that outlines your brand's purpose and the impact that you want to make. Your mission statement should convey your values, what you do and who you serve, and should provide direction and inspiration for your charity and overall brand as well. Fifth, don't be scared to conduct market research. Don't be scared to go out. There's a number of organizations that run focus groups if you don't feel like you have the experience to create one yourself. So exploring the industry or the market that your donors are from, looking at current preferences and current trends in terms of donation and fundraising trends as well. This research should help you develop that statement, and also how you can portray your purpose and whether that's coming across in the way that you hope to individuals. And it also might create some opportunities for you to align your purpose. The sixth is developing your brand and personality. Consider the emotions and feelings and perceptions that you want to invoke from your brand and from your audience and from that mission statement. Is your tone and voice and visual identity of your charitable brand, does that align to your purpose? Do your social media posts align to that as well? Is your tone and your voice and your kind of brand consistent across all of your different platforms, and also internally within your policies and procedures as well? Consistency in messaging and visual elements can help build brand recognition, particularly around colors, logos, consistency of imagery as well. 7 kind of links into 5 as well. Seek feedback. Continual feedback can help improve your brand. Do this from trusted individuals and focus group. Ask for honest feedback and suggestions, but also ask that internally as well. They can provide valuable insights to help you improve in an ever-evolving and changing environment. 8, we have align your actions with your purpose. A lot of our charities do this already, but if your purpose and mission statement is potentially out of date, thinking about updating this and what is your purpose and considering it consistency between your words and your actions is really important in building trust and credibility. And then finally, evolving and adapting. Times are ever changing. So to gain more experience and insight, remaining open to refining and evolving your charitable brand and purpose is really important. Your donations and methods of donations might change, and also your audience. They might age over time, they might change in demographic. Thinking about, are you staying in line with what they need and what they want, and are you staying agile and adaptable is very important. So I guess in summary, remembering that a brand and a purpose is an ongoing process. So continually evaluating and assessing your progress to ensure you're effectively communicating and living your brand values day to day is really important. We're going to delve into a bit more detail about new types of fundraising we've been seeing across the sector over the next few slides. We're mainly going to be focusing on cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence today. But there are different things that have been evolving around new social media platforms. You might have heard yesterday that Facebook or Meta is coming out with an equivalent competitor to Twitter called Threads. But there's also things such as Clubhouse, which is focused more on podcasts, and other forms of fundraising of social media platforms that can utilize for fundraising that are coming out on a day-to-day basis, and even basic things like TikTok. Some brands have now see TikTok as their main revenue stream in the charitable sector. So are you actually utilizing in the platforms in a way that is creating engagement and creating stories? Gaming, not as new as it used to be, but gameathons, actually building your own games. Some charities are in the process of building own interactive games that young people can use online to interact with charity. Mobile and QR codes, they're around to stay, but where is your QR codes? Are they in public spaces? Are they easily accessible? Are they on bus stops? Are they in places that people see daily and can access and can make better use of? And then targeted fundraising, which we'll touch on a little bit in AI, but making use of the data that you have and available on platforms, and whether your fundraising is targeted towards your demographic. So starting out with cryptocurrency, but there is a slight caveat around this, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail in a couple of minutes' time and in a few more slides, which is around AI and cryptocurrency. There are a number of risks that you need to consider, and there are a number of policies and procedures and discussions that you should have before you jump into any of these. So this is a very high level, thought-provoking discussion to talk about innovative ways of using these, but you should also think before you jump. So charities can leverage cryptocurrencies in a number of ways. There are a few on the slide here, but we'll delve into them in a bit more detail. So a number of charities are now accepting direct crypto donations. Charities can actually accept them directly rather than through platforms, which is highlighted in the third bullet point. But charities can create crypto wallets to accept donations in various crypto forms. You can then display this wallet on your website, social media channels, and other platforms to encourage supporters to contribute using crypto currencies. And you can limit it so that people have to be identifiable, so you can limit your charity's wallet, but it also means that you will be holding digital assets. So that's just something to think about, on whether you want to hold a variable currency that varies a lot in value day to day as well. Launching a token-based fundraising campaigns. Movember did this very well. So charities can create their own tokens and use existing tokens on blockchain platforms to launch fundraising campaigns. You can offer what's called NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, but there are different types of tokens on the market as well, which is a form of donation. It's a form of currency in some ways to reward your supporter. I like to see it as kind of like monopoly money, kind of like fake money, but with value. But that value varies, and to reward your supporters. So these tokens can be utilized by your charity and can be traded on crypto exchanges. So you can potentially increase the value of them as well. Participating in cryptocurrency giving platforms. This is the most common one that I have seen recently, and kind of the start of charities' journeys with cryptocurrency. So that basically are several online platforms that will facilitate cryptocurrency donations to charities. So you are kind of outsourcing it like a third-party fundraiser. These platforms often vet and list charitable organizations and make it easier for individuals to donate digital assets securely. Charities can register on such platforms to expand their reach and also receive donations from the crypto community. But you can also limit who can donate. You can turn off anonymous donations so that you can verify where donations are coming from, which makes it a bit safer compared to other methods. But please do your due diligence before you appoint a crypto giving platform as well. We have seen some go under, so just be aware of this and do due diligence before kind of appointing a third-party fundraising platform. The fourth is leveraging blockchain-based fundraising platforms. This has been seen most in Australia because they have quite progressive regulation around this. So utilizing blockchain technology enables the creation of what's called decentralized fundraising platforms. I know I might be saying words that you don't know, so if there's anything that you would like further clarification on, please pop them in the Q&A. But where individuals can directly donate to specific charitable causes and projects. So they can either use blockchain so that you can set up, so donate to a specific charitable project, or you can use blockchain mining where people will utilize some of their computer capacity to then blockchain mine, as it were, and then donate the income from that to the charity. But there is an environmental impact of that because it does use a lot of internet, and it has quite a large environmental footprint associated with that. So these partners can, these platforms use smart contracts to kind of ensure transparency, track donations, and provide accountability. So charities can leverage these kind of blockchain platforms to raise funds for specific initiatives and also showcase how donations are utilized, because you can then link how those donations are based. So actually you can, if you do it in the right way, use crypto and blockchain to actually increase your transparency rather than decrease it, but it's coming at it from the correct lens and perspective. Partnering with a cryptocurrency business. Again, I've seen this more in corporates rather than I have in charities, but charities can collaborate with crypto exchanges and wallet providers to create branded kind of wallets and branded platforms. This is a very early stage element. I've just started seeing conversations around this. But such collaborations can help charities reach a wider audience and benefit from the expertise and resources of cryptocurrency companies that know a lot more about the sector than the average charity. Exploring decentralized finance. Again, quite a new thing, so I won't go into too much detail, but they're called DeFis, and you can explore finance portals and platforms to access additional funding options. So I would say this is the new form of crowdfunder, as it were. So they provide liquidity pools and lending and staking, which can be utilized creatively to generate funds. However, it's essential to thoroughly understand the risks with DeFi. Again, they're quite new and it's quite a new area. And there's a lot of regulation coming in around this area as well. And then finally, as I touched upon it, you can use crypto and blockchain to transparently showcase your impact. So cryptocurrencies can provide a transparent and traceable transaction history due to the blockchain technology. I know that kind of goes against all the media around it and how it can be done anonymously, but it has the positive in that it can follow through end to end where stuff comes from. So it actually can make it easier to identify the donor and the history and so forth. So charities can utilize this feature to showcase the impact of donations by sharing transaction records, details of how the funds were utilized, and this transparency can build trust and encourage more crypto donations as well. But overall, just to sum that up, because I know there was also quite a lot of technically complex areas within this, it's important for charities to educate themselves and for finance and fundraising teams to educate themselves as well on cryptocurrency donations, crypto regulations, and seek legal and financial advice to ensure compliance. It is a complex area, it is a new area, and it is an area that is evolving quite rapidly. Cryptocurrency markets can be quite volatile, so it's crucial to have appropriate strategies in place to manage and convert donated cryptocurrencies into traditional currencies or other stable assets if needed, and thinking about the time that is done, whether that's at the point of donation or whether the charity does want to hold a small amount of crypto assets and donations, but kind of the risk in that volatility as well. The next that we're going to talk about is artificial intelligence. So the one that I think people will have heard about the most is ChatGPT. It is a learning AI, but there are a lot of different ones on the market, which we'll go into in a minute. But how can you utilize that to actually improve your fundraising? Like, how can you use it to your own advantage? So the first, and if people haven't used ChatGPT before, if I take a step back, it is kind of like, I would say Google. So you log in and you ask it a question and it will spit out an answer for you, but it spits out an answer from all of the information that is found on the internet, all of its previous learning, and provide you with kind of a personal response. And you can ask it to then do further action. So you can ask it to summarize information that is provided. You can ask it to put stuff in bullet points, change the format, put it into a table, and so forth. So you can use it to craft compelling fundraising messages, to generate engaging and persuasive messages, to communicate your fundraising goals and initiatives effectively. So it can provide the model with relevant information about your cause, target audience, and desired outcomes. The model can then help you refine your messaging to resonate with potential donors. So you can ask ChatGPT to ask you questions as well. So you can say to it, please ask me 10 questions about this to help create my fundraising messages in a personal and refined way. So don't be scared to get it to refine and get it to ask you information before it generates some of those fundraising messages for you. You can get it to generate personalized donor outreach conversations. So to create personalized messages, provide details such as their interest and previous contributions. But again, we'll talk about, you need to be really careful when sharing protected information. So you really need to think about GDPR, and this is a third party. So you should see it as giving that information to any third party supplier. So you need to be very, very careful in what information you give it. So it's generally better to play on the safer side and try to, I think, limit the information you're giving it, but you can generate learning AIs within your organization as well. BDO is generating a learning AI at the moment. So that is something that is new and evolving and probably will be more common practice in the next 5 to 10 years. So you can use ChatGPT to run Q&A sessions, so it can organize virtual Q&A sessions and act as a moderator. You can pre-train the model on frequently asked questions about your fundraising campaign and program. All of this will be in the the kind of open market as it is, so people will be aware of it. This is third-party information, so you can then utilize that a lot more. This will enable the model to provide accurate, informative responses and help potential donors better understand your cause and build trust. You can create interactive fundraising campaigns, develop interactive experience or games using ChatGPT to engage potential donors, and also create chat-based games, optimize donor communications, and then also look at different ways of generating fundraising content. I am a little bit conscious of time, so I am going to speed up slightly because I want to just cover the next 2 slides, which is around different types of artificial intelligence. So thinking about AI-funded platforms that you can use, there are different types beyond ChatGPT. So they are AI-powered fundraising platforms, chatbots, that is kind of a responsive AI that can be employed to engage with potential donors and answer their queries, kind of like that Q&A that I spoke about. There is natural language processing, so not only can it read out information to you, make your fundraising programs more accessible, but also it can be utilized to analyze large volumes of data, say from social media posts or that are online, and kind of extract insights and sentiments from that data. They can perform predictive analytics, so looking at historical data to predict what potentially will happen in the future. Image and video recognition, so not only can it recognize trends from images, it also can be used to generate images. So there are AIs that you can ask to generate certain images these days. So say, change this image in this way with this plant in it, and it will add that plant into that image. Generating social media analytics. Is there potential insights that you can gain to improve your fundraising interactions in the future? And then finally, donor relationship management. So there are AI-powered donor management systems being generated these days, so that can provide comprehensive donor profiles, including giving history, preferences, and interactions. Again, it's quite a new area and it is evolving, but by leveraging machine learning algorithms, these systems can help fundraisers identify potential major donors, suggest personalized stewardship strategies, and so forth. It's important to note that while AI can enhance fundraising efforts, it should also complement human-driven strategies and ethical considerations. Human oversight and ethical use of artificial intelligence is really crucial in maintaining transparency, privacy, and trust with your donors. I'm actually not going to go into this one in too much detail because we've talked quite a lot about building your brand. But these slides in this webinar will be available afterwards, and I'm happy to pick up further conversations around this or in the Q&A as well. But the idea is about understanding your donors, developing a donor-centric culture, so the donors are in every discussion that you have, making sure that you communicate effectively and kind of personalize your interactions, streamline the donor process, make it as easy as possible for someone to donate, express your gratitude, as we talked about earlier, provide regular updates so that your donors feel informed about the impact and their involvement with your organization, seek continual feedback, offer engagement opportunities, and then seek to continually improve as well. Then the final bit that I wanted to touch upon today is about knowing your risk. So both cryptocurrency and AI come with a number of risks. So we've touched upon some of these, but particularly cryptocurrency comes with volatility in terms of value, regulatory and legal considerations need to be taken into effect. Charity Commission does have guidance around this and how you should be risk adverse around cryptocurrencies. Security and fraud risks, knowing where they come from, and also that they're an attractive target for hackers as well. Liquidity and conversion challenges, knowing a lot about cryptocurrency and holding kind of, is it an easily liquidable currency? Ethical considerations, charities need to ensure that crypto donations kind of align to their ethical guidance and do not support illegal activities. Accountability and transparency, crypto donations introduce complexity in accounting and financial reporting, and to mitigate this risk, charities should establish clear policies and kind of seek professional advice as well, and implement safeguards around this. And in regards to artificial intelligence, it's important to keep in mind kind of data privacy and security that I've talked about. Charities must handle donor and beneficiary data securely and comply with privacy regulations. Ethical use of artificial intelligence. AI systems should be developed and deployed in an ethical manner and avoid biases and discrimination. Transparency and explainability. Charities need to be able to provide explanations of how AI is used if you are using data, and ensure transparency in the decision-making process. Equity and accessibility, charities need to address potential bias. Again, that they're being used in a kind of fair and ethical way, kind of linked in the first point as well. Skills and resources. Implementing AI requires expertise and resources. It's a new and emerging area, as I've talked about, so charities need to assess their capacity and capabilities, consider whether external partnership would be a better way of doing this. And impact evaluation. Charities regularly evaluate the impact of AI initiatives to ensure that they align to their mission and deliver desired outcomes. And all of this kind of stems back to your know your donor requirements. So this wouldn't be a presentation by BDO if we didn't talk about kind of some of the legal requirements. You do need to know your Proceeds of Crime Act, the Terrorism Act, and money laundering regulations. Know your donor is a CC Charity Commission regulation as well. So there is a CC guidance around it, and it's about knowing where your money is coming from. So again, the risk of anonymous donations and whether you can accept this around kind of crypto donations. So you need to be making sure that you're checking your donor's identity and carrying out risk assessments as relevant. So I've already taken up way too much of your time, so I'm going to hand over to Gemma to talk about legacies and lifetime giving.
Thank you, Josie. So yes, my name is Gemma Davies. I'm a private client tax director. I sit within the private wealth succession and governance team, where I advise multi-generational families on wealth and succession planning, helping them on a wide range of matters such as inheritance tax, preservation of or passing on wealth, and philanthropic giving. So Josie's covered some really great ideas on how to maximise your fundraising, and I'll probably mention some of these again and how they might tie into legacy giving as I share my experience working with donors and their families. So a quick look at some of the statistics on this first slide show that there's definitely scope for an increase in legacy giving, and therefore why charities might want to dedicate some time and resource to focus on potential legatees. Analysis from Legacy Foresight last year predicted a substantial rise in legacy giving over the next 5 years, anticipating it to rise by 26%, bringing an average legacy income of £4.2 billion per year. So if we just move on to the next slide, I've set out a couple of points that I want to discuss today. So starting with the benefits. To the donor, there is obviously an inheritance tax incentive. Firstly, a gift of cash or assets from a donor's estate to a UK charity is exempt from inheritance tax. For larger donors whose charitable legacies make up at least 10% of their net estate, there's also the benefit of the reduced rate of inheritance tax on the remaining estate. However, as shown on the stats on the last slide, with 60% of adults not having a valid will in place, it's likely a good proportion of those adults are also unaware of these inheritance tax benefits. A legacy also gives the donor an opportunity to continue supporting a charity they may have supported in their lifetime. And a legacy is more than just a gift of money or assets. It's the lasting impression that's left behind. To a charity, a legacy can be, though not always, a more substantial donation than a donor might make in their lifetime. So what are some of the barriers? One of the main barriers to charitable giving that we see with our clients when considering lifetime giving or legacy giving is family. Many people with children, the idea of leaving money to charity could be seen as disinheriting their family, or maybe some uncertainty about how much their family might need in the future, and therefore how much is available to be donated or left to charity. As a charity, it's therefore important that whenever approaching a potential legatee, to keep this in mind, to approach them with a family first approach. After you've made gifts to your family, maybe consider leaving something to the charity. So having that in mind is vital. Another barrier is access to information. There's so many wonderful charities out there, but many on the surface may appear to be doing some of the same things, and some donors will have a philanthropy advisor. They carry out the research, they look at what charities are active in the causes the donor wants to support. The philanthropy advisor will carry out due diligence, source individual projects, liaise with the charity fundraising or legacy teams to fill in the gaps. But not all donors have their own advisors, and possibly some don't have the time or resource to dedicate to finding that right charity. And that brings me on to the last barrier that I wanted to mention, which is time. As I've said, there's no legacies without a will, and a will is something we all love to put off or deal with when we have more time to think about it. Some people might have no intention of making a will, perhaps they don't feel they have sufficient wealth to justify having a will, or they don't understand the intestacy rules and what happens to their estate if they were to die without a will. So as a charity, if you can consider anything that can help you do to make it easy as possible, either to give guidance about the importance of wills or to help them choose a charity to leave a legacy to, consider your website. How easy is it to find your legacy pages or download a copy of your brochure? Does that brochure contain sufficient information for potential donors to make an informed decision in a timely manner and without need for further in-depth research? It is vital, and Josie touched on this, about understanding what motivates a donor. Unfortunately, there is no single right answer to this. Each donor will be different in their motivations, and understanding them on an individual level is therefore key. They may have a personal experience to your charity, or your activities may align to their personal circumstances or those of a loved one. They may have a small family or no family, and therefore are just considering leaving their wealth in its entirety to charity. They may be wanting to make an impact after they're gone, to leave a gift in remembrance of a loved one, or to thank you as a charity that may have supported them or their loved ones in their lifetime. Therefore, consider what your charity can do to increase people's experience of your charity. Do you offer visits to current projects? Are donors or potential donors invited to meetings with senior staff, or can they spend time with beneficiaries? All of these might help build those relationships to help you to understand those individual motivations and ultimately increase the commitment of potential legatees. Lifetime versus legacy. So in recent years, private client advisors have seen an increase in clients wanting to accelerate their giving into their lifetime. Generally, as advisors, we are working together. So lawyers, tax advisors, philanthropy advisors, investment advisors, we're all working together to ensure philanthropy or charitable giving is included in conversations with clients around lifetime giving as part of their succession planning. Lifetime giving can be more rewarding and more interesting to the donor because they get to see the impact of their gifts, and they can find those causes or individual projects that they wish to support. We also see donors using charitable giving as a tool to introduce the next generation to philanthropy, to help define and expand their family's values. So charities can use this increase in lifetime giving to build long-standing relationships with their donors and their families, which should naturally then lead on to the legacy gift. So what else could charities do? So a lot of this stuff Josie's already mentioned, but key is, communication, including clear gift sections and additional information about legacy giving on your website, in newsletters, emails, social media, or any other platform you use to communicate with potential donors. Also communicate the importance and the value of legacy giving through meetings with your supporters with clear explanations, case studies, and examples on the long-term benefits of legacy giving. Perhaps hold virtual or in-person conferences specifically on legacy giving, again, demonstrating the value to a wider pool of potential donors. Before this, though, you should really consider whether the charity has the knowledge in-house to run an effective legacy programme. You could perhaps partner with another charity who provide charitable legacy services to outsource the admin burden, or perhaps you could partner with another charity who could help you develop your own legacy programme. But most importantly, and this is my key message, is to get to know your donors and what motivates them. Legacy giving is all about the donor and not about the charity itself. So hopefully there's a few points there, and I can pass you across to Ross, who will be looking at how you can make the best use of your existing assets. Thank you, Ross.
Thanks, Gemma, and good morning, everyone. Great to be speaking with you this morning. So I'm Ross McQuire. I'm a director in our value creation services team. We focus on operational and performance improvement, working with a lot of charities to protect their bottom line, but also to improve their effectiveness in raising income too. So what I want to cover in a bit of detail today is around how charities can make the most of the assets they have. So with an environment like we have, and with it being challenging for quite some time, it's incredibly important that before attempting new initiatives, organisations try and make the most of what they currently have and optimise performance to the extent they can. So this isn't a comprehensive list, but what I'll do is cover the section by speaking to three general buckets. And these have been a focus of a lot of my discussions with leadership teams and trustees of late. So I'll firstly cover how charities can make the most of their properties, then touch a bit on monetising the strong brands that charities have, and then lastly touch on likely the most prized asset that you have in your people. So properties. Buildings can, if organisations are lucky enough to have them, be really valuable assets for charities, not only serving as a really great space for your operations, but also as potential sources of income. So by adopting a slightly more innovative strategies, should we say, charities can really unlock some added potential from the buildings and generate some additional income to further contribute to your activities. So first and foremost, it's fairly critical that charities assess the space you have, identify and utilise spaces, because often there's areas within buildings that can be repurposed or rented out to generate a bit of extra income. So considerations we typically see are renting out office spaces because COVID-19 has resulted in slightly less requirements for the people that work at your organisations, renting out meeting rooms or event venues to businesses, educational institutions or community groups. And this can typically create a pretty nice steady income that also makes use of space that would have otherwise been fairly idle. Critical to maximising this area, though, is to have a really good focus on utilisation. So keeping really strong MI can be the first step to optimising. So how many desks are you using? What are usage patterns? Peak period pricing if renting out spaces, and long-term trends can really help. Another avenue, and the second bucket that I'll look into today, is entering into partnerships with businesses or individuals through naming rights and sponsorships. So the best thing you likely have is your really strong brand. And with this comes a great opportunity, as Josie alluded to earlier, of generating income via corporate partnerships or royalties. So corporate giving, either as one-off gifts or better still, ongoing relationships can provide an invaluable boost. So what we tend to find is that to create successful partnerships with the business, charities need to almost think like a business, approaching potential partners with a clear plan, a really solid pitch, emphasizing what impact can be achieved if they invest, goes a long way. But as with any relationship, kind of having shared values is really important and almost fundamental. And we see that some great partnerships over the last decades have been fostered and really have lasted, the test of time because of those shared values. Perhaps that's businesses that work in the same sector or have a similar customer demographic, or simply just believe in your cause. But it's fairly fundamental that there's a meaningful connection, because what this really does is help to foster a really sustainable relationship. Other more formal arrangements might lend themselves to licensing or royalties. So consider licensing a brand to companies for use of products or services. This can include, allowing corporate companies to use your logo in exchange for licensing fees, bit of a tongue twister, or royalties. And we've seen great examples of this in the medical devices market, as well as in the food and beverages market as well. So as with anything, this isn't a silver bullet, and there are costs associated with these revenues. So brand protection, continual monitoring, legal fees, the kind of obvious costs. But should you carefully vet potential partners and ensure that their values align, then it's a really great income stream that can be explored. And lastly, but by no means least, is the final asset that most charities have in absolute spades, and that's your people. So from working with a number of charities on initiatives like this, we can see the exceptional benefits from investing in professional development of your staff and board members really help. So against the kind of high inflationary backdrop, wage pressures, and the private sector likely paying a little more competitively on wage structures, the best way for charities to differentiate themselves is to focus on some non-paid benefits. Giving your staff are really committed. We see, fantastic workforces in the not-for-profit sector, and they're great at what they do. Supporting them in other adjacent areas can go a long way to helping them have a bit more of a rounded skill set. So typical things we see are training and education programs to enhance their skills in fundraising, financial management, marketing and governance, and generally just enabling your people to make more informed decisions and effectively manage the charity's assets on your behalf. So a really great example of an initiative we've seen as well is kind of having lunch and learn sessions or idea sharing. So setting up innovation sessions to hear a bit more from employees of how other ways of generating income can be done, and it is relatively little effort to put those sessions on. So with that, fairly whistle-stop tour, but I'll hand over to Vicky, who will be talking through taxable income and tax considerations.
Thank you, Ross. So hello, everyone. I'm Vicky Watts. I'm a director in the charities tax team here at BDO. And I'm just going to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes of your time today just to reflect on how tax fits within all the very exciting and innovative things that you've heard today. I don't plan to make this a tax technical conversation by any means, more just the start of a thought process, I suppose. So clearly, when you're doing anything new, whether that be pursuing a new income stream or pursuing some sort of new use of an existing asset, as Ross has just been talking about, it's really important that that's done in a way that doesn't have unforeseen tax consequences, because all the good work of pursuing something new can be undone if at the end of it some annoying tax people like me come along and say that's all very well, but that income's subject to corporation tax and actually you should have been charging VAT on it, and all of a sudden that brilliant income's dwindling away. So all I would encourage is, in advance of going live with any kind of new activity, to just consider the 3 questions that are on this slide. Can I get a corporation tax exemption on this? And if I can't, what can we do to plan this in a different way? What's the VAT position? Should I be building VAT into the contract? And can we claim gift aid? And that can be a really important one. So Gemma and I were actually just discussing yesterday some advice she's been doing for one of her clients who was seeking to give some cryptocurrency to a charity. And for many of us, it would intuitively feel like, oh, that's just a gift in the same way as cash is, so we can claim gift aid on that. But HMRC take a different view on that. So questions like, do we want to accept cryptocurrency, or is it better for our donor to sell that asset and donate cash? And the answer to that will be different in different circumstances, depending on whether you intend to hold the asset, what return you think you might get on that asset versus what gift aid might be available. But it's an interesting question to ask, and one that's better to ask up front. And I've just flagged just a few of the areas that I'm working with clients on at the moment where they are pursuing different types of income streams which have had tax consequences that they might not have been might not have foreseen. So for example, the crypto example that I gave earlier, but also anything where you're working in partnership with, particularly where the other partner is not a charity, so any kind of corporate partnerships, corporate participation agreement. It's usually the case that we can structure those in a way that is tax efficient. It's much more difficult if you've already signed the contract when we have that conversation. So just make sure that somebody who understands the tax is looking at those before you go ahead. And the other one that I'm seeing frequently at the moment is in relation to seeking income from grants. and whether or not those grant receipts carry VAT on top of them, and more importantly, whether they're taxable. And that will depend on the terms of the grant that you're receiving. All of these, there's not a clear-cut answer that they'll always be taxable or that there's always a VAT charge on them, but it will depend on the circumstances. So early thought to tax to make sure that it doesn't undo all the good work of the innovative fundraising and income maximisation that you're working on. And with that, I will reintroduce Josie.
Thanks, Vicky. So I'm conscious that we are running slightly behind time. So what we'll do is we'll follow up in the Q&A in an email after, and the follow-up email around this webinar. Or if you want to drop any of us a question directly, all of our emails are on screen now. But just to also plug again that this is a mini-series in our Every Penny Counts webinar, kind of focused around the cost of living crisis and increasing demand on charities. So the next one is on the 26th of July on optimizing your cost base. And then the next one is on the 6th of September around managing your cash and cash flows. All of our recordings go up on our BDO website. So you can see all of our previous webinars there, but also it gives you access to our not-for-profit digest that comes out on a quarterly basis as well. So overall, it's just to say a bit of a thank you for attending. If you do have any questions, again, please drop them through to us. All the series that we're doing link into the themes that everyone has said in our survey that we did at the Charity Finance Conference are around issues that are currently being faced in the sector. So we're trying to keep them as topical as possible. So if you have anything that you think we should cover as well in the next 2 sessions that you would really like to cover or enjoy, or would like some further insight on, then please drop us an email as well, and we can try and incorporate in what we're discussing. So just thank you so much for making time this morning and listening to us all.